Right, week 5. We are going to sort of finish some of the thoughts we started last week about how to do communication well. And this week is a tough one on me. I got hammered by these concepts, particularly the idea of communicating feelings as opposed to communicating thoughts and judgments. I am a repeat offender in this area. And there are really some simple ways that you can figure out if you are just as bad at this as I am. I used to think that I was communicating feelings all the time. I thought I was great at communicating feelings. I'm supposedly emotionally intelligent, right? And yet whenever I was wanting to tell you how I felt, the conversation would start like this, or the sentence would start with the words, I feel like you are something or other. Terrible skill. You might con yourself into thinking you're expressing a feeling when in fact you're expressing a judgment, because you can't feel like sad, or feel like angry, or feel like disconnected from you. When you put the word like after the word I feel, you're about to express a judgment about what's really going on out in the world, or what I assume is going on inside you. Don't let yourself off the hook like I used to for ages, thinking that you're communicating real, genuine truth about what's going on inside you using the term I feel like. It's bad English anyway. You don't feel like XY, you think XY. That would be the correct way to say that sentence, and that immediately gives the game away. I think you are irritating. Oh, that's not helpful. Now I'm making a judgment about you, and that is not going to build connection between the two of us. Whereas if I'm able to say, I feel insecure around you when you joke like that, I'm giving you information that you can really work with. That's what's going on in the session that Bruce filmed. He did such a great job. And you're going to get to watch it and enjoy it with your group. And he's really pushing for this idea that I'm not going to make judgments about you. Last week, Amy proved to us that if I start trying to, even if I'm prophetic, even if I'm great at discernment, even if I think I know you really well, if I start trying to make judgments about you and tell you what's going on inside of you, then I have breached trust in some way. All I really am an expert on is me. I'll tell you about what's going on inside me because I'm an expert on that. And I'll let you tell me what's going on inside you because you're an expert on that. That's all we're going to do. Bruce then takes us a step further because that might sound, oh wow, I never get to get my needs met. My whole job in a relationship is just to understand you. We never actually get to move or improve. We just stay in this static state of you understand me and I understand you. Listening to that in isolation, I suppose you might think, well then does the relationship ever grow? Or do two people just keep on talking at each other? This is what's going on inside of me. Okay, cool. This is what's going inside of me. How does that ever move forward? Well, if you would actually try that, you'd discover that it's impossible to stay still. That as you're hearing the other person's needs, you almost can't help but start to make adjustments for them. But this week kind of codifies exactly how that happens. Is that I'm going to express my needs to you, and you can voluntarily meet them or not. But I do have a responsibility to express them to you clearly. I have a responsibility to send you an I feel message that makes it clear what's actually going on inside me and what those emotions give away that I actually need. So your feelings aren't just floating in isolation. Your feelings are always connected to some need that is either being brilliantly well met or being left unmet. I feel deeply satisfied when I'm in the wild and the sun is setting and it's Africa. Why? Why is that so deeply satisfying? I suppose because I have a need for place. I have a need for being rooted to my continent. I have a need to enjoy the creation of God and be at peace. And the better I get at articulating those needs, the more helpful they are to the people I'm in a relationship with. Because we may not always be able to go out into the bush, but if I have a need for an adventure, if I have a need to be connected to creation and be in some beautiful places, then if that need has been left unmet long enough, and I start getting grumpy and a little bit difficult to be around, if I'm mature enough to be able to express that need to my wife and say, look, I'm sorry, I've got a bit of cabin fever, I have these needs, she knows where to throw me out of the car when we're in a beautiful spot somewhere and just let me go and be a bit of a Bear Grylls for a while so I can sort myself out. If I'm too irresponsible to articulate my needs well, I can't be bummed that you're not reading my mind. I can't be frustrated that you're not loving me well if I haven't owned the fact that I need to express my needs to you properly and give you a fair shot at hitting them voluntarily. See, that's what intimacy is. God designed it so that we could voluntarily worship Him and that He would voluntarily meet all manner of needs that we have. That was so that we could build intimacy with one another. And the huge idea is that it's not just a case of, well, God meets all my needs, so I have no needs from other people. That's so spiritual, it sounds like it should be true. But what Bruce proves to us is that Corinthians 12 shows us it's not. We have needs that one another can meet as well. And God designed it that way. But you get to voluntarily meet my needs. I'm not owed anything. Paul, the apostle, was able to say, in plenty and in lack, when people accept us or when they treat us as imposters, even though we're actually well known. And even in sorrow, we can still be rejoicing. So Paul was saying, I have needs that people can meet, and it's wonderful when they do. But even if you don't meet all the rest of my needs, my ultimate need is being met because I'm connected to God. And so it would be immature for me to say I have no needs. God just meets them all. I wasn't designed that way. I'm made in the image of God. I'm designed for connection with other people. But even in the most tragic situation where all my connections are being stretched and people aren't meeting my needs, and so they aren't responding to my offer of intimacy, essentially, when I make my needs available to you, I give you an invitation into meeting them, which gives you an opportunity to grow in intimacy with me. Even if you choose not to take that invitation and you leave my needs unmet and intimacy doesn't grow, I can still work to build connection with you because my ultimate need is being met. So let's not get into this nonsense of I have no needs, or on the other extreme, you owe me my needs. You have to meet all my needs because if you don't meet my needs, I'm hopeless. That wonderful romantic you complete me, I complete you thing is a horrible basis to build a relationship off of. My biggest need is being met already. I'm not going to offer my other needs to you for you to voluntarily meet. That's where question 2 comes in. This is the one question that might sound a little kind of out of left field. All the rest of the questions make perfect sense in the light of what Bruce has spoken about. Question 2, I've tried to just push the conversation a little further into how we might create counterfeit intimacy, that is fake intimacy, by manipulating people into meeting our needs, which in the short term might fill some kind of hole, but in the long term can't, because it does actually drive connection down. And I put a few examples here, but there are plenty. You may have power over someone because you have more money than them. You can be a blesser, that terrible concept that's rocked up in society these days, where you're going to give me some kind of love because you need the resources I have. Or I know that my body is alluring to you, that you aren't in great self-control of your sort of sexual urges. I'm going to use sex as a bargaining tool to get what I want. Or if I get enough sex, it'll make me feel like I'm connected to you. And it's a fake thing, but it gives me the illusion of being connected to someone else. It could be food. It could be approval. It could be any number of things that I try to use as a carrot to get you to do what I want. Or I just eat lots of that carrot in a way that sort of in the short term makes me feel satisfied. I binge on enough TV that I have the illusion of great relationships because I'm watching great relationships on the box, but I'm not actually building them myself. Or I watch some great adventure show and as Bear Grylls is jumping off that rock into the water, in the short term I feel like maybe my need for place and connection and adventure is being met, but actually it's counterfeit. The need is not really being met. So that's what's going on there. I either use these things as a carrot to manipulate you into meeting my needs, that's not helpful, or I try and get those needs met illegitimately. Neither of those things are what you're designed for. You're designed for proper connection with people, where two free human beings rock up voluntarily and then communicate their needs to one another. They take responsibility for the fact that I do have needs. I'm going to tell you what's going on inside me, and then I'm going to offer you an opportunity to meet those needs. And the more consistently you do, the more our connection grows. But at no stage do I ever start to assume that you have to for all time. I don't put expectations on you. That is the kind of first step towards killing a relationship. You always get to choose, and I always get to appreciate what I am being given, as opposed to obsess about what I'm not being given in this relationship. So that's what's going on in question 2. I hope that makes sense. I would think that you'll need to do a little bit of explaining. And then the other thing just to say is that the way we've shot it, just to change things up a bit, is that you'll press pause after Bruce explains question 1, let the conversation happen, press play again for question 2, let the conversation happen, press play again for question 3, let the conversation happen, and there is no final concluding thought from Bruce. So I trust that this conversation goes really, really well. Force the people to actually write there, I feel X when you do Y, and I need to feel Z. Force them to create that sentence before they leave. What an amazing skill to have given your people if you can force them to get there. And enjoy it.